Most people try to change their life from inside the state that created it. They strategize from anxiety, they plan from scarcity, they reach for connection from loneliness, they attempt to build confidence from the precise emotional position of someone who does not feel confident. And they wonder, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades, why the external circumstances keep arriving in the same basic configuration, regardless of how much effort has been applied. The missing variable is almost never strategy. It is almost never information or discipline or the right opportunity. It is the state from which all of those things are being attempted, because the state you are in is not a neutral background condition while you pursue your goals. It is an active filter that determines what you can perceive, what you can access, what you can generate, and at a level that sounds more metaphysical than it actually is, what you consistently attract into the field of your life. Change the state, and you don't just feel different. You become a different instrument, receiving a different signal, sending a different output into the systems that shape your circumstances. Change the state consistently, not as a mood, not as a performance, but as a genuine recalibration of the nervous system's baseline, and the timeline itself begins to shift. This is not mysticism. It is the logical consequence of understanding what a state actually is and how thoroughly it determines everything downstream of it. Part 1. What a state actually is. A state is not a feeling. It is a total physiological configuration. It is the sum of your nervous system's current activation level, your hormonal profile, your muscular tension patterns, your breathing depth, your heart rate variability, your neurochemical balance, all operating simultaneously as a single integrated condition that determines the quality of every experience you are capable of having in that moment. Every cognitive function you perform, every perception you register, every decision you make, every emotional response you generate, all of it is downstream of the state, not influenced by it, downstream of it. The state is the ground condition from which everything else emerges. This means the same situation encountered in two different states is not the same situation. It will be perceived differently, interpreted differently, responded to differently, and produce different outcomes. Not because the situation changed, but because the instrument encountering it changed completely. A creative problem encountered in a state of expansive curiosity produces different solutions than the same problem encountered in a state of anxious contraction. An opportunity encountered in a state of genuine confidence produces different behavior than the same opportunity encountered in a state of chronic self-doubt. A relationship entered from a state of genuine okayness produces different dynamics than the same relationship entered from a state of unacknowledged need. The state is not one variable among many. It is the variable that determines the quality of every other variable. And most people have almost no conscious relationship with their state because the state they habitually inhabit is so familiar, so normalized, that it no longer registers as a state at all. It registers as reality. Part 2. How state shapes timeline. The connection between state and timeline is not metaphorical. It operates through several concrete, interlocking mechanisms. The first is perceptual. Every state comes with a corresponding perceptual filter, a specific configuration of what the nervous system notices and what it screens out. A state organized around scarcity will notice evidence of scarcity with extraordinary reliability, finding it in ambiguous situations, extracting it from neutral interactions, generating it in the interpretation of genuinely positive signals. A state organized around possibility will notice possibility with equal reliability. The same environment, filtered through these two states, produces two completely different pictures of what is available. This means the opportunities, resources, and connections that make up a timeline are not equally visible from all states. Some are structurally invisible from certain states, not because they don't exist, but because the perceptual filter is not configured to receive them. Changing the state doesn't create these things. It makes them receivable for the first time. The second mechanism is behavioral. State drives behavior below the level of conscious choice through the automatic responses, the unconscious signals sent to others, the quality of presence that people in your environment are registering and responding to without knowing they are. A person in a state of genuine confidence does not just think confident thoughts. They move differently, speak differently, hold eye contact differently, make decisions differently. These behavioral differences produce different responses from the environment, which accumulate over time into a genuinely different trajectory. The third mechanism is energetic, and here the language gets more contested, though the phenomenon it describes is real. What people consistently bring to every interaction, their state, their nervous system's output, the quality of presence they generate, is detectable. Not through mystical means, through the extraordinarily sensitive social detection apparatus that human beings possess. What you are at the state level is continuously broadcast, and the world organizes itself in subtle and significant ways around what is being broadcast. Part 3, why most state changes don't stick. This is where most approaches to state change fail, and why people who understand the principle intellectually still find themselves unable to operationalize it. Surface state change is not state change, it is state performance. Affirmations spoken from a nervous system in chronic contraction do not change the state. They produce a slightly elevated mood that evaporates within hours and leaves the underlying configuration exactly as it was. Visualization practiced without genuine somatic engagement produces intellectual understanding of a desired outcome without any actual shift in the body's baseline. Gratitude listed in a journal without genuine felt sense in the body produces a concept of gratitude rather than the state of it. The state lives in the body. It is not a mental position, and therefore it cannot be genuinely changed through mental means alone. What actually changes a state is direct intervention in the physiological systems that produce it. Breath, the single fastest and most accessible lever for autonomic nervous system state. Movement, the discharge of held activation through the body rather than the mind. Prolonged exposure to genuinely different conditions, environments, relationships, practices that create new experiential data for the nervous system to reorganize around. Somatic work that reaches the held patterns in the body directly rather than trying to override them with new thoughts. And perhaps most importantly, sustained practice of accessing states that are not the default until the new state gradually becomes a new default, not as a mood that visits occasionally, as a genuine recalibration of the baseline from which life is lived. This takes time. It takes repetition. It takes the willingness to return to the new state again and again, even as the old state reasserts itself, which it will reliably for longer than most people expect. Because the old state is the established pattern, and patterns persist through their own momentum. Part 4, what genuine state change produces. When the state genuinely changes, not as performance, not as temporary elevation, but as a real shift in the nervous system's baseline, the changes in the external life that follow are not magical. They are the logical consequence of a different instrument engaging with the same world. New things become visible that were structurally invisible before. Opportunities that were present in the environment but undetectable through the previous perceptual filter begin to register. Connections that were impossible from the previous state because the previous state was broadcasting something that repelled them become available. Behavior changes without effort because behavior is downstream of state. The things that required enormous conscious will from the old state begin to require less, because the resistance that made them difficult was a feature of the state rather than the task. The things that were compulsive from the old state, the habitual returns to the behaviors that maintain the old timeline, begin to lose their pull because the need they were meeting has been addressed at the level of the state rather than managed at the level of behavior. And the timeline, the cumulative trajectory produced by perception, behavior, and the quality of presence brought to every interaction, begins to shift. Not overnight, not dramatically at first, but directionally, unmistakably, in a way that compounds over months and years into a life that is structurally different from the one the old state was capable of producing. You cannot think your way into a different timeline. You cannot strategize, plan, or visualize your way there from inside the state that built the current one. The tools available in the current state are the tools that produce the current results. And different results require not better use of the same tools, but access to tools that the current state does not contain. The state is the starting point, not the circumstances, not the strategy, not the opportunity. The state is where the timeline begins, because the timeline is the cumulative output of every perception, every decision, every behavior, and every quality of presence that the state made possible. Change the state genuinely. Change the baseline honestly. Return to the new state persistently against the pull of the old pattern until the new pattern has enough repetition to begin generating its own momentum. And then watch what the world does. Not because the world is magical, because you have become a different instrument. And different instruments in the same world produce different music. The timeline was never fixed. It was always just a reflection of the state you were playing it from. If this connected something you've been missing between how you feel and how your life keeps going, share it. Someone you know is working harder and harder from a state that cannot produce what they're working toward. This might be the thing that finally shows them where to start. See you in the next one.